Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the best friend reset that is coming to North America and how you can improve your own chances of being selected. So this article/video is nearly a carbon copy of a previous iteration of this, but for those viewers who have not been watching me for a prolonged period of time, this will be new to you. But for those who have been following me for some time, it's going to be a pretty similar video article because, well, not much has really changed in regards to how the best friend system actually works. But I guess at this time here, one kind of newish thing is that I'm going to be going for 300 out of 300 best friends. I'm currently sitting at about 280 plus with a bunch more kind of lined up waiting for the reset. So I feel like Mantastic is going to hit that 300. Fantastic is at like 150. So Fantastic still has room to accept people, but I don't know if Mantastic really does at this point in time. But regardless, I'm going to be talking about how the best friend system works as a whole to give each and every one of you a better understanding of how to improve your own PAL point generation. So basically the first step in acquiring more PAL points is to have friends. Now, we don't have to actually go out to a bar or nightclub and interact with people. We thankfully can just sit on our little device and maybe even venture out into like the realms of the Facebook groups, the Reddit page, or the various forums. So the idea is that you have your own ID here and you enter someone else's ID. Or conversely, you can enter a dungeon of a user and then choose to add them as a friend later and hopefully they accept. So the way you do this is you go into friends and then ID search, type, you have your ID here. So basically when you start out playing Puzzle and Dragons, you don't have any friends at all. You have to actually start making them to actually have someone to choose to bring into a dungeon. In an ideal world, you want to obviously bring friends that complement your own teams. But when you first start out, your friends list actually has a smaller cap, and as you rank up, it'll eventually be pushed all the way up into 50. And then once you hit 50, you will be able to buy 5 more friend space for 1 magic stone. So you can kind of view this as a bit of an opportunity cost. The sooner you expand your friends list, the more PAL points you'll be generating over time, and it can make a big difference, like we did see with the most recent super PAL Egg Machine Carnivals, where like we could get like King Tamadras, pluses, super snow globes, so on and so forth. Now, there are many ways to basically share what you have with the various media platforms, but this is the way that I have found is most efficient for showcasing the leaders you want to run as well as your ID in a single picture. Obviously, you can type out the ID as well so people can copy pasta more easily, but the idea is that one image can solve all your problems. So what you do is you go into your team, you basically click the team name to type in your own ID. Just type your own ID and then showcase the leaders you plan to run from like kind of a left to right basis of what you're going to have up most. So from this image here, it's basically indicating that I'm going to be having a Diablos up basically all the time because Diablos is incredibly popular and powerful and everyone loves to utilize a 7x6 leader, and then like Yusuke, Edward, Beach Barber, and Julie Dark Metatron. So it's a simple way to display your information, but there are still a few kind of keys to success. So obviously you want to try and use popular leaders because, well, when you have popular leaders, you're more likely to have people actually want to friend and maybe best friend you because it's just a numbers game at that point. Conversely, if you have something truly niche and you find a lot of people who'd like to use that specific leader, it can be beneficial, but you want to have something that's invested. So invested leaders means that they're basically maxed out in every way possible. So in this day and age, having max level, max pluses, and even max skill is actually not that incredible. Having max level through super limit breaking, so that Edward and Barbara Julie here, is significant. It's a bit more difficult for the average player to acquire, so it can help you stand a little higher amongst your friends list. But having the right latents, like the correct killers or skill delay resist, and or the more niche and valuable inherits such as say Fujin or Fujin style actives or Raytheons or King Bradleys for poison resist tend to make a big difference. Like for example, Diablos with a Raytheon is much more appealing than a Diablos with almost any other inherit. Same with a Dark Metatron with a King Bradley. Similar sort of idea there. So having that. In addition to that, you obviously want to be active. If you log in at least once per day, you kind of refresh your name on your friends list and people can use you more. Obviously, you're probably going to be playing more than just once a day, possibly, so you'll be logging in on a regular basis. People keep seeing you. They're not afraid of deleting you because you're not an inactive player. In addition to that, you want to have a consistent leader display. Like I have that image above, like Diablos is up all the time. And because I have them up all the time, people are kind of getting used to that and they understand that they can expect to have a Diablos friend on a regular basis. And then it makes it more likely they want a best friend because they know they have access to the Diablos basically on a 24-hour window basis. And then the last thing is you should avoid duplicate leader display. So for the friend system, team slot 1 is shown to everyone, your current team you're using is shown to everyone, and team slot 2 is shown to best friends. And ideally, you never want to have any of those 3 slots showcase the same leader when you kind of put your device down and go interact in the real world. Like if you're playing through dungeon, like I'm playing with my Diablos, it's okay, I'll leave them in slot 1, my active slot, and I'll change it back afterwards. That's what we do. Just don't have duplicate displays because you want to be as diverse as possible. So after you've done all of that and you've actually passed rank 50, which is actually when you can make a best friend selection, you can choose a best friend. So this can be kind of like a large commitment by pad standards because a best friend selection is permanent. Once it has been made, you cannot undo it. Being deleted by a best friend or deleting your best friends will not give you back that best friend token to pledge to someone else. So if you still have yours right now, do so and use it right now before the reset because it will be lost, so to speak, because when everything is reset, you gain a new token to give out. You do not lose your previous best friends, so don't be afraid to use it now and then after the reset when you found a suitable individual. So the benefits of having best friends is that you will gain 100 instead of 10 PAL points per usage, so that is 10 times more valuable. But you have access to 3 leader slots, so slot 1, slot 2, and active slot. Furthermore, those friends leaders will be available for 24 hours without them actually logging into a refresh. And that's a big deal because let's say you really needed that Diablos friend for whatever reason and you kept failing a dungeon. It's always going to be there when you best friend someone. So that is something to keep in mind, like you have access to them all the time. And in all honesty, utilizing the correct leader is more important than a few PAL points. Like choosing a less optimal leader for 10 PAL points instead of using a best friend that you've taken already is nowhere near as good because stamina is still the most kind of powerful currency outside of magic stones. So things you want to keep in mind when choosing a best friend is find leaders that are suitable for your box and teams. You want to have kind of a certain degree of tenure of that person. Try and talk to them beforehand to make sure they're not going to quit suddenly or they're going to switch leaders all the time. Just ask them what leaders they plan to keep up moving forward in the long run. Like there is a messaging system in pad. It's not the most efficient because you can't see the message history, but it's still at least something if you don't have like Discord or know them on Facebook, so on and so forth. So another thing to keep in mind is best friend triangles. So the idea of a best friend triangle is that you basically arrange with a group of individuals to best friend each other. So for instance, we have 3 people, A, B, and C. A will best friend B, B best friend C, and then C best friends A. This kind of triangle shape here. And doing so will give you 2 best friends for only 1 of your tokens. This is obviously most beneficial when you know the people and they all share the same common leaders that you plan to use anyways. So try and coordinate with those that you know to find and establish these best friend triangles. Now, if you are in a newer account, there is, I guess, some controversy as to what you should do with your best friend token. Should you try and find a triangle, or should you try and best friend someone high ranking that has highly invested cards? Now, this may obviously sound biased because I'm a high ranking player of highly invested cards, but I honestly feel that best friending someone like that is more beneficial because that newer player can be kind of carried through lots of content and they have access to things that they shouldn't normally have. With that being said, a high-ranking player does run the risk of switching leaders on a regular basis, which is why you should try and establish some form of communication beforehand to make sure that they're not going to just swap out of the leader that you badly need. So remember, just try and find a couple leaders that you really need and best friend and latch yourself onto that person, if at all possible. So, like I already said before, saving stamina is more important than gaining like 10 or even like an extra 100, 200 PAL points per day because stamina is still so valuable. Having the right leader means you're more likely to succeed in the dungeon. With all that being said, if you have an alternate account, it is definitely advantageous to best friend yourself because you're going to be playing with yourself all the time anyways, so you're getting more PAL points and you have access to each other, which is meaningful, of course. So, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the video, Mantastic's account is kind of getting very full. Like, it's pretty much at its limit. I need to trim off maybe like 1 or 2 more people, I feel. And I might hit my 300 possibly when the reset occurs. So I don't think I have space on Mantastic to accept people. But Fantastic still has room to accept individuals. And I run Yusuke, Dark Metatron, Reune, and Anubis with Mary thrown in every now and then. So, basically in conclusion, best friend resets are exciting because it gives players a chance to kind of expand their leadership roster potential because you can now tap into more leaders that you may not have had access to in the past. You should always make sure you best friend someone who intends to obviously play for a long period of time or has complementing leads yourself. So I strongly encourage you to actually communicate with those individuals you actually plan to best friend. So let me know what you think about the whole best friend system in the comments below. And do you think triangles or best friending a particular person for specific leads is more valuable? And if you do wish to best friend either of my accounts, leave your own ID and your in-game name and which account you want to best friend. As stating again, Mantastic's account is kind of saturated, so it's really just kind of Fantastic's account that can really accept people at this point in time. Hopefully you'll have a Mantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.